Johnson, and this is Untethered. Everything Wrong with Genesis edition. I'm your host, and today is an interesting day. Today is my belated mother's birthday. Belated birthday and belated mother. And it's been an interesting day. How are you guys doing? What's going on in your neck of the woods? I just wanted to point that out because, things. Hey, Darlene, how are you? Good to see you. I'm ready to get into some atheist ass. See what happens. How are you doing this fine evening? And do we have lots of people coming to hang out with us tonight? Absolutely. This here is, I believe, episode 13. Seems like it is. Of Everything Wrong with Genesis. It's been a hard day. But knowing it has for you guys too. Thank you. Well, one could say that today I am a potentially lethal dose of a volatilely convoluted cacophony of hopeless internalized narcissism intertwined so tightly pressed against the throes of grief and anguish, set firmly twisting in the winds of eternity as I peer ever deeper into the vastness of the void, trying desperately to understand what I privately visualize as the overlying shadow and outline of the end of all things. So you can imagine where my brain has been today. That tell you anything? I can't repeat that if I wanted to, but that's how I feel. Missing my mom, thinking about our relationship and how tight we were, how close we were forever, and the empty hole that's left that can't be filled by seemingly anything. But that's okay, because I'm still alive. Why are you confused? I see clearly. The rain is gone. What makes you confused, hon? I always get a little down on her birthday. Not necessarily down, just introverted, introspective. A fleeting glance at sanity. Sometimes. Ha! Anyway, it's Sunday, so you know what that means. You take it one step at a time, one day by day, and every other cliche that fits the narrative, and you just keep on keeping on, as my mama would say. Just about what you said didn't quite catch it all. Well, it's recorded for posterity. That's the trouble with stream of consciousness. It's hard to remember. Got my boxing gloves on and I'm ready to fight. How about you? You ready to take a hunk out of crime? Let's see what the atheist has to say.
Genesis 16. If your sister wife can't have your children, God wants you to know it's totally fine to impregnate one of her slaves. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children."
Right off the bat, there is a difference between a concubine and a slave, and you need to probably look up the words before you go spouting them off, because you sound like you don't know what you're talking about.
Go, sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her. Abram agreed to what Sarai said. Whenever people say you should read the Bible, they never mention the part about how a wife urges her husband to bang her exotic slave.
They shouldn't have to mention it. It's written in the Bible. It's literally the truth, and it was her idea. So why you're talking about it like it's a slight on her is beyond me, because she's the one that came up with it.
Notice how we don't get much of a reaction either. "Oh husband, do you want to sleep with another woman?" Yes. Keep in mind, no one asked Hagar for her opinion on this.
Because she's a concubine, she doesn't have an opinion on this.
There's no consent here. We don't know if she wants to sleep with Abram. We don't know if she wants to be pregnant. But those decisions have apparently been made for her. The Bible fails every Me Too test. So after
Well, considering Me Too didn't come out till 2017-ish, I don't know why it would pass a Me Too test.
Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar, and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress.
So, the wife's mistress was given to the husband by the wife for the purposes of making children. So whose concubine was she? Was she the husband's or the wife's? Sounds to me like she belonged to the wives, or wife. And despise is a harsh word, more like feel jealousy because she couldn't do it. She wanted to give him children, but she couldn't bear children at the time. And because her concubine was successful, it made her feel remorse. That's not the same thing as hating something.
Then Sarai said to Abram, "You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she's pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me." Notice the language here.
Yeah, it sounds like insecurity. That checks out.
Abram slept with Hagar, but really, he raped her.
No, he did not rape her. She's his property, which means he can do with her as he wishes, because that's how concubism works. You understand? There's a reason we don't have concubines anymore in modern society. This is one of those reasons. But since you're talking about property, you need to understand that to have a concubine is to own a piece of property. The concubines knew this and were okay with it. So were the owners of the concubines.
Because we still haven't heard if she was okay with this arrangement. Don't ever let a Christian talk to you about the sanctity of marriage.
Why? The sanctity of marriage doesn't include concubines. It did at one time, but it no longer does. Since Moses laid down the law, all things have changed.
Marriage in this case is a man, a barren sister wife, and an unconsenting slave who now hates the barren sister wife. I don't remember that pamphlet from Focus on the Family. And you know what? I'm on Team Hagar here. If someone forced you to have sex with an old man against your will, and then you got knocked up, and you were gonna have a child that someone else would raise as if you don't even exist, you have a right to be angry at the people who came up with this idea.
No, you don't, and every word you just said was completely made up off the top of your head. None of those things are true in this case. All parties are willing parties in this story.
Your slave is in your hands, Abram said. Do with her whatever you think best. Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. Sarai beat up a pregnant slave.
Mistreated, not beat up. Probably was bitchy to her. You understand, that jealousy and selfishness can cause a lot of emotions to happen in a short amount of time. And that sounds like what's going on here. Through no fault of her own, that's just the nature of how people feel about other people, especially when it's their job to perform and someone else is doing the performance.
Even though this was all her idea, the angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her."
See, even God says you can't run from your owner. Go back to where you belong and submit, because that's the nature of the agreement made. You understand that people would often sell themselves into servitude to pay off certain debts or to gain a leg up in society or something to that effect. It's not a matter of her being there against her will.
The angel added, "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count." Leave it to the Bible to include the line, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her," and make it the least erotic thing ever.
Or you could read it that not only will I forgive you for running away, but I'll multiply your blessings. Sounds better.
Somehow the section with the heifer and a goat was hotter than this. It sounds like this angel is supposed to rescue her, but telling a slave to go back to her abusive owner so that she can get pregnant again, and again, and again, all presumably against her will, doesn't sound that great. Then again, taking revenge on your enemy by having a bunch of children that she'll be forced to raise?
It seems like you might be a little bit hard-headed and not want to hear reality when it's presented to you, because you keep twisting the meanings of things into some nightmarishly woke narrative. Woke don't sell.
That's kind of brilliant and very evil. The angel of the Lord also said to her, "You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery."
Ishmael being the brother that the religion Islam comes from. Or, Islam.
"He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility toward all his brothers." A wild donkey. How's that for encouragement? God knows you're miserable, but go back to your abusive owner and have this child who will grow up to be rebellious and hated.
And notice that he also said that he would live in hostility against all of his brothers continually, meaning to this very day. And if you look at the societies that exist in certain areas, you will see that that holds very much true to this very day.
And then have thousands of other kids. Abort now, Hagar. It's early. You can do it. And also, I will tell you this from experience. If someone you know is having a baby, do not suggest a name. Horrible idea. None of your business.
Why? There's nothing wrong with suggesting a name.
Not only is Hagar having this baby she didn't want, with a man she didn't pick, in place of a woman she doesn't like, she doesn't even get to name the child. The Bible is so mean to her. She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. "You are the God who sees me," for she said, "I have now seen the one who sees me." That is why the well was called Bir Lahairoi.
So, just so I understand you, God speaks to this woman personally, and you think the Bible's being mean to her. I would check my priorities if I were you, sir.
It is still there, between Kadesh and Bered.
Hey, April.
I'm glad the Bible found time to drop in a tourist recommendation at the end there. Also, it's weird to thank God for your own torture and humiliation. So Hagar...
Well, if she's thanking him, clearly she doesn't see it as torture or humiliation. Maybe she sees it as a blessing, a gift, life. See, that's your first mistake. You discount life as the best blessing.
Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael.
Now, as I said before, through Ishmael would come the religion of Islam, and through his brother Isaac would come the religion of Christianity, which has been perverted into 3 or 4 different types of religions based on Christianity.
Nothing like being a first-time father at the young age of 86. That guy, I promise you, will never offer to change a diaper. But on the upside, at least the baby isn't coming out of his... It seems pretty clear that God and his angels are totally fine with slavery. At least they don't condemn it.
Again, being a concubine and being a slave are not the same thing, but both are in the family of indentured servitude, which is a thing in those days. So it's not uncommon, nor is it evil, nor is it uncomely. That's just the nature of how people do business.
And even when they have the chance to help an escaped slave, the advice is to go back. There's a woman who needs to hurt you and a man who needs to keep impregnating you. Tell me again how this is a good book? Genesis.
It's a good book because it's the best book ever written. And it's true, which always makes a book good if it's true. Come on, man. What's your motivation? What is that, 16? Let's go to 17. See what else you can come up with.
Genesis 17. God will give you everything you've ever dreamed of, but you need to tip him. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless.
See, this is a conditional statement. First, the fact, I am God Almighty. Then the condition, walk before me blameless and faithfully. Those are 2 conditions to the walking before God. Do neither one of those things or either one of them left out, and you're not walking before God. You see, this is a contract. It's a language adaptation called a contract. Same holds true for a handshake. God is saying, if you walk before me faithfully and blameless, I will be your God Almighty. See?
Then I will make my covenant between me and you and will greatly increase your numbers.
And there is the reward for following the condition of the contract. He made the contract. He set the conditions. If the conditions are met, the reward will be given. This is not hard to understand.
Abram and God have already had conversations. Why is God reintroducing himself? Also,
God is not reintroducing himself. The writer is reintroducing the idea of the antagonist to the reader. You're reading a book, sir. A book has to illustrate the story, which means you lay out an outline, and then you go back to the beginning of that outline and begin to tell the story of the outline in detail or greater detail. And sometimes you go back for a third pass to make it even more detailed so that whoever's reading fully and thoroughly understands the stakes, the conditions, and the places.
It's God.
A moment. Sorry about that. I can't seem to keep that thing up there. It has a mind of its own. Falls about once a month. But I'm back. Here we go.
We know who you are. It's not like we would forget your face. You're the one person in this whole story who quite literally needs no introduction. How can Abram be blameless anyway? He already lied to the Egyptian pharaoh about his sister wife.
Well, you see, that wasn't exactly a lie. That was a deception for the purposes of gaining profit. But also, there's this thing, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's mentioned maybe once in the Bible. I'm not sure. It's called forgiveness. You ask for forgiveness and you're cleansed, which makes you blameless and spotless. Look into it.
He already allowed his sister wife to basically be used as a sex slave. Is there a spousal exemption to the blameless rule? And why does God have to keep
Being a surrogate mother and being a sex slave are not even the same sport, let alone the same ballpark. Come on.
telling Abram and everyone around him he'll have tons of kids? Babies matching the number of dust particles. Babies matching the number of stars in the sky. I will greatly increase your number of babies.
When's the last time you counted how many people were on this planet whom are all, at this present moment, descendants of Abraham?
Used to that diaper stench, since you'll be swimming in it like Uncle Scrooge in a pile of money. How insecure is Abram that he needs this constant reassurance? Also, I'm just curious, how do you think the Lord appeared to him? Are you picturing a face in the sky? A voice?
I don't know, but I would hazard imaginatively, visually.
From above? A weird human standing across from him and staring into his eyes? That's the part I really want more details about.
Well, here's a detail. God's not human. God is extra-human. He's extraterrestrial. He's extra-celestial. He's above and beyond time, space, and matter, which makes him an entity unto himself, because there's nothing else in creation or created that fits that description. So he's not human. So whatever he looked like, I would imagine, is probably awesome.
Forget the damn babies. Tell me what the Lord looks like. Is he white like Jesus in all the paintings, or brown like...
Hey, moron. Jesus was not white. Jesus was a Jew, which makes him Middle Eastern by nationality.
Middle Eastern people would actually be. Abram fell face down, and God said to him, "As for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations."
You see, a covenant is stronger than a promise, which is stronger than your word, which is stronger than I guess so. That's the hierarchy of promises.
No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you very fruitful.
Now, this is a study that I've delved into for a long time, because apparently and clearly adding an H to your name turns you into something other than what you are to start with. This happens quite a few times in the Bible, and other letters too. Sometimes whole names, like Saul from Paul and Simon from Peter. But Sarah and Abraham had an H, which is the breath of God, the Ruach, the Spirit, the Holy Spirit of God, added to their name physically, like in letters. It's a Hebrew thing. The language is so specific that if you change even a little dot around one of the letters, it changes the entire meaning of the whole word. You can't repeat Hebrew incorrectly. You can't rewrite it incorrectly, is what I'm saying. It's like a cipher unto itself. Once it's established that this is what the sentence is, this is what's being said, you can't change it. It's that specific, because every letter and every dot and every jet has a meaning, and every number has a meaning, and every letter has a number assigned to it, as well as several meanings, depending on the number and the letter and the jots and tittles. It's a really hard, complex language, but it's very important that you understand that by adding something to a word changes its entire meaning. And that's what's happening to Abraham here. He's being transformed into something other than what he was to start with. That's very important to illustrate, and I think they do a good job by adding the H in the Bible. It makes you stop and pay attention to that name. And once you understand why that name is being altered and what it means to the man who's being altered for, then you understand that this is probably one of the biggest blessings bestowed by God among men. It's very important to know that, because all of the descendants of Abraham inhabit this earth now.
I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you.
Everlasting, by the way, Mr. Atheist, means forever in the Georgian tongue.
And your descendants after you for the generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God.
You see, not only did he bless Abraham with an undying, unending seed, but he also took him from whence he came and set him up in a bigger, better place with more opportunity and prosperity at his avail. So not only did he give him life, but he gave him the stuff of life. He set him up good. He set him up right. Abraham was truly and well a made man.
Abram to Abraham. Leave it to the Bible to make a major change by literally adding the word ha, in case you're wondering why God even...
Not ha, just ha. There's no A and an H. And that's a distinction that's worth noting, because a ha is usually a reaction to something that's funny. If you have two of them, ha ha, it's really funny. But if you just have an H, you're just breathing, man.
Bothers with the name change. Abram is supposed to mean exalted father. But Abraham is like a Hebrew phrase that means father of multitudes.
Was he not exalted? I feel like the gladiator. He was exalted. Greatly. Exalted means to be lifted up.
So God is changing his name to show a very insecure Abram he'll have tons of kids.
It's funny how you actually kind of grasp this concept. I didn't think you would, but you are. You are kind of touching it. I don't think you fully understand it, but you're close. You're there. You're right at it. Just think a little bit longer. I think you'll come to it.
Because he needs a lot of reminders. And did the beginning of that just say a 99-year-old man fell on his face?
Yes.
Someone should call an ambulance.
That's an expression that means literally to put oneself prostrate among the ground. That means to spread eagle and lay down on your face. It doesn't mean to fall from an upright position without bracing yourself nose first into the dirt. You're being literal when that's not what the expression means.
Check his hips. God could heal him. Instead, God just keeps talking like nothing happened. And I know it sounds kind of funny that Abram fell on his face, but that phrase actually appears in the Bible, get this, nearly 36 times.
Maybe that's an indicator that you should try it. Maybe prostrate your own self humbly before the Lord and see what he does for you.
Everyone falls on their faces, and no one ever stops to help them. Notice the brainwashing, too. When you have kids, Abraham, I will be their God. These kids...
That's not brainwashing. That's a matter-of-fact statement. He's not talking to the children, telling them things that aren't true to make them believe in him. He's telling Abraham what he's actually going to do, and he does it. That's not brainwashing. That's a plan.
Kids apparently have no choice in the matter. Their religion has already been picked out for them. Then God said to Abraham,
"You're a dude. You had no choice in that. Your sex was laid out for you from the moment of conception. Does that bother you? Do you feel slighted? I don't. I'm who I am. They're who they are. And who they are worshipers of Yahweh."
As for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you for the generations to come. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you.
There's another one of those conditions. Do this for the amount of time of the generations to come. Generations being plural, meaning all of them, meaning this one. You're supposed to still be doing the walking faithfully and being blameless part. Still, you haven't been excused from that. That is your obligation part in the contract. Maybe you should take it seriously. Just a guess.
You, the covenant you are to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. Whoa, whoa,
whoa! Circumcised. Why would they do that?
So there's the catch. I'll bless you and your descendants forever, but I need your foreskins.
It's literally a small price to pay. I'm just saying.
Lots of them. From all of you. God could have said anything there.
Well, all of the men. It's kind of hard to circumcise a chick. However, since you're making a point of pointing it out, I got something in my hair and it won't go away. There. Since you're making a point of pointing it out, the circumcision is of the heart, not of the penis. Just so you know that the idea of circumcision is to cut away the unclean. It's a metaphor. Yes, there are people who actually circumcise their young, but the circumcision mentioned here, whether it be at this very moment or in the near future, eventually ends up meaning to cut away the unclean from one's heart, from one's existence. It is not a physical lobbing off of the flesh. Just so you know that, words have meanings for reasons.
You want to stay on my good side? Pray to me 5 times a day. Fast for a whole month from sunup to sundown.
Now, fasting is usually prescribed as being 10 days, not a month. Jesus did it for a month, but he nearly died from it. You can't not eat. You can limit your eating, but you have to eat, and you have to, especially have to drink. You can't go more than 3 days without drinking.
Give me 1/10 of all the money you ever make. Instead, he goes with, cut off the skin on the tip of your penis just to prove your love to me.
That is not what he said. It was a condition, not a request. You understand the difference? He didn't ask him to cut his penis. He told him that if you want to be who you are going to be, then you have to do this sacrifice, this thing. It's not a request. It's a statement. So you are missing the meaning of the statement because you assume that there's a choice involved here or that there's a accepting of that choice. You don't get to accept it. You just do what you're told. That's the meaning of authority. True authority is over you. It controls your interests for you. You don't have a say. You are an autonomous creature. That autonomy only goes so far. So stop acting like you're in control. You're not. You will die just like I will.
And no one acts like this is unusual at all.
It wasn't.
They could have just shaken hands. Instead, God wants penis flesh.
Well, let me ask you a question. If you made me a promise and I required that you give me a piece of your flesh as opposed to just shaking my hand, would you be more apt or less apt to keep up your end of the bargain due to the cost?
You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and you. For the generations to come, every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised, including those born in your household or bought with money from a foreigner.
And at this particular time, they are referring to a literal circumcision. It doesn't end up being that way, but at this moment it is.
Those who are not your offspring. Can't have the foreskin of a week-old baby. That would be weird.
No, it wouldn't be weird, but it might hurt more because you understand that when a baby's born, it takes a few days for their brain to start functioning properly. When a baby is born, though they open their eyes, they can't actually see anything yet. They see like fuzzy colors, but that's it. They have no acuity of mind. It takes a moment for the brain to start functioning and to gather information. You understand, it's a clean slate. A baby's born with no information, save what they gathered from the womb, which means all the stimuli has to enter the brain and then be interpreted, and then the brain has to decide what to do with that information and where to put it. So 8 days is probably appropriate for the limit to the amount of time that one could exist without knowing what pain is. That would probably scar a child emotionally.
8 days, though? That's fine. And not just the foreskins of your kids, but your slaves, too. As if their lives weren't bad enough.
Well, their lives were worse. That's why they went into slavery of their own accord most of the time. Because it made their lives better. Because they profited from it. And once you become a servant, you belong to that family, which makes you their descendant by law. So yeah, what goes for them, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, is what I'm saying.
In a normal situation, if someone said, I'll give you everything you've ever wanted, but only if you torture all the men in your house, including the infants, you, a normal person, would say, no, not taking that deal. It's not worth it. I will not hurt another person to satisfy your insane foreskin fetish.
First, if God promised to bless me beyond my wildest dreams always, it would be worth both, and I said both, of my arms. A small piece of flesh with one swift slice does not a torture make, my friend. That's not torture. That's one inconvenience for a vastly superior promise kept. Think about what you're saying. If God blessed you with everything, would you not give him whatever he required? I would. I guess that's the difference between being intelligent and being deceived.
But the Bible is not a book of morality. So torturing babies and slaves, and I assume slave babies, is just fine for Abraham.
Question: is there any place, anywhere, on any page of any book, in any library or coffee table, on any continent, on the face of the whole of the earth, that suggests that the Bible is merely a morality tale? Only in that from the commandments we derive our morals does that hold true. The Bible most certainly is not a moral tale. It is a tale of humanity, which is the most immoral thing that exists in this world. It's not morality. It's not for morality's sake. It's for honesty's sake and for a record of God's existence and his work. It does record quite nicely, but it does not suggest morality. Morality comes from God to people, not through a book. So you are setting up a straw man by suggesting such a thing.
By the way, in the book of Galatians, chapter 5, the Apostle Paul says, if ye be circumcised, Christ shall profit you nothing. And it's not like the procedure is reversible, so maybe don't. Whether born in...
Actually, what that statement meant was that circumcising yourself just to get the profit, the reward, won't work. You have to be in it for the right reasons. Your soul has to be justified. You have to walk with the Lord blameless and faithfully. If you don't do that, the circumcision doesn't matter, which is why it became a circumcision of the heart eventually, because it really doesn't matter. What matters is what's in your heart. So there's where the circumcision needs to be.
Your household or bought with your money, they must be circumcised.
In my own humble opinion.
My covenant in your flesh is to be an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant.
And that's a very serious charge right there. And at that moment in time, before the flood, it was very, very important that you follow those rules to those people. Understand that the people that exist now did not exist then. It's different people, different existence, different set of generations. Before the flood, things were purer. Things were closer to the origin, closer to their beginnings, meaning that it mattered what the bloodlines did. It mattered who was who and where they came from. It mattered what their intent was. It mattered what their decision-making abilities were. So at that moment in time, if you chose to not follow the rules, they would cut you off. They would cut you out of the family. You wouldn't be part of their life anymore because you didn't give what everyone else did. You got to give your pound of flesh just like I did. But now it's a little different. Now we have Jesus, which sets aside many, many, many things that were hard to deal with in those days. Jesus' existence paid all of those fees in full. So now none of those fees are required of you. So you're just talking about ghosts. That's what you're doing. You're setting up arguments against ghosts, things that no longer exist or apply.
What a weird Christian threat. Give me your foreskin or you are dead to me. Cut it off or I cut you off. Break the flesh or break the covenant.
And to think, some people just require your allegiance.
The choice is yours. That doesn't work in any other context. If you're watching this video, I need you to like and subscribe, and then I need your left testicle. If I don't have a bag of testicles by the end of today, I swear I am moving to Vimeo.
Well, I tell you what, prove to me that you're God, and I'll lob my testicle off right now and send it to you. Give me of your blessings, so that I know that you are the God that I worship, and I will give you whatever you ask of me. But you can't do that because you're a mouth with a very small brain running off into the darkness, hoping somebody will believe words that come from between your teeth. And what you're doing is wasting a bunch of time, everybody's time, yours included, especially included, because you don't even believe half the shit that comes out of your mouth. I know this because I've heard you flip-flop. I've heard you say what you're required to say as an atheist and then turn around a few minutes later and say the truth, sarcastically like it didn't apply, like you got one up on reality. You didn't. You're just a mouth, and that mouth will write checks that ass cannot cash. If I were you, I would invest in a banker.
What is God gonna do with all these foreskins anyway? Build a hut? God also said to Abraham, "As for Sarai, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will..."
There's adding that H, the breath of life, to her existence. The second time in that family. It's very important that that's pointed out.
"Surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations."
Oh, you know all that bitching you do about women not getting names in the Bible? Not only did this woman get a name, she got a name directly from God himself. Because she is an important key to this story. The other chicks that don't get names, they're just people. They're not important to this story. They're not part of the ascension of the thrones, as it were. But this woman, she is an integral part to the future of the existence of mankind, because through her will come all other things eventually. So she gets a name plus.
Kings of peoples will come from her. Abraham fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, "Will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? And Abraham...
No, Darlene, it's not about the foreskin. The foreskin is of little consequence. It's about the sacrifice. It's about the willingness to give up something important to you. And for a man, there's nothing less important than his penis. You understand what I'm saying? That's the end all be all, quite literally the tip of the spear. And to cut it off to avail a promise is a pretty serious offense to a man. So to do that willingly and honorably, without question, shows servitude. It shows the willingness to obey. It has nothing to do with the flesh itself. That flesh will rot in short order. It won't be there very long. I doubt you could find a piece of foreskin from that era. And if you did, it would be petrified, or it would be leather and kept in something airtight. It wouldn't be naturally discarded.
Abraham said to God, "If only Ishmael might live under your blessing." Is anyone going to check on Abraham after he falls on his face again? At least Abraham's reaction here makes sense. Even he's like, "You've got to be kidding me, God. I'm almost 100, Sarah's 90, she's been unable to have kids as long as I've known her, but now she's suddenly going to be fertile?"
Yes. Now, first of all, concerning the age of these people, they lived 900 years, roughly, which meant in their 80s, they would have looked like 20-year-olds or 25-year-olds, somewhere in that area. They would have been that far along in the progression of their life because their lifespan is much longer than ours. You see, you grow up according to, a snake grows according to the environment it's kept in. It will only get as big as the aquarium. A man will only grow as fast as he lives long. You see what I'm saying? Secondly, the falling on one's face is an act of worship, not an act of imbalance. And thirdly, God blessed Sarah's womb. Whether she were 90 or 19 or 900, it doesn't matter. If God blessed it, no man can tear it asunder. So, yeah.
I don't believe you. Abraham was the original atheist.
No, he was not an atheist. He was very devout, and he followed his God religiously and righteously. He was nothing like you. He was more of a man in the end of his crusty toenail than you have been your entire existence. So if I was you, I would tread very carefully on dishonoring the name of a man so great as you could have ever imagined. So do not do that. Secondly, don't call someone an atheist when they believe in God, because that's called blasphemy. That's assigning a intention to God's words that he did not desire or intend. That is you taking the reins of God. That is blasphemy at its finest. So watch your mouth. And thirdly, or fourthly or fifthly, I can't remember, shut the hell up, man.
In case you're wondering why Sarai's name was changed, by the way, Sarai means princess, while Sarah means mother of nations, which at the moment is really a cruel joke to a woman who says she's barren.
She didn't say she was barren. She literally was barren. She lived 90 years without child. That's the definition of barren. Also, the word meaning princess, her name Sarai meaning princess, is a little clue to how God viewed her as a human being. He saw her as his princess, the heir to his throne. You understand what a princess is? She is second in line to the queen. Being female, she'd have to be a princess. It'd be kind of weird if she was a prince. But you see what I'm saying? It's the same meaning. So God took her from being the heir apparent and transformed her into the mother of things. That's beautiful beyond compare. I can't understand for all of the notions in the world why you can't see how wonderfully beautiful that is, how amazing and awe-inspiring that story is. This woman was taken from nothing, given the title of heir apparent to the throne, and then blessed beyond compare by having the throne handed to her in her offspring. There's nothing more fantastically beautiful than that. I tear at the thought, and you mock it as if it's some bedtime story gone awry. And I can't understand if you're being disingenuous or if you're just that stupid. I don't see you as a stupid person, but you say an awful lot of stupid things.
It's like calling a blind person four eyes. Then God said, "Yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call..."
Hey, dingaling! Fellow four-eyer here. You don't call blind people four eyes. You call people who wear glasses four eyes. By the very nature of the act, they can see.
Him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will surely bless him. I will make him fruitful and will greatly increase his numbers.
Peace be upon him.
He will be the father of 12 rulers, and I will make him into a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you by this time next year.
Note that he blessed and give permission to exist to Islam, but he contextualized and made valid Christianity through Ishmael and Isaac. Both two peas in the same pod, both descendants of the same line of ascension, both the same religion from two separate perspective points.
When he had finished speaking with Abraham, God went up from him. So Abraham and Sarah's future son Isaac will be blessed, and so will Ishmael, his other son with not Sarah. But that blessing won't be as good. It's not a covenant with the...
It's not a matter of good, it's a matter of ownership. That blessing that is bestowed him is it's known as a half portion. You know, to some they get a portion, to some they get only a half a portion, to some they get a double portion. This is mentioned several times in the Bible for this very reason, because Ishmael got his portion on earth. Isaac got a double portion, one for earth and one for heaven. You see? Because through Isaac will come Christ. Christ didn't come from Ishmael. He came from Isaac. So that line of ascension must be blessed. This one is just another line of ascension. It's not the blessed of the people. So you see, where you come from kind of matters.
Lord, even God loves the younger kids more. And how did God...
Well, it's not that it matters. Where you come from matters to where you're going. It doesn't matter in the moment. But from whence you came determines and matters to where thou goest.
Go up? Did he
I'm trying to sound intelligent here, and this just doesn't work sometimes.
fly? Apparate? Use a smoke bomb? The Bible gives us all the wrong details. On that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and all those born in his household.
I'm sorry, did I just hear you say that the Bible gives us all the wrong details? It's the most detailed book I've ever read, and I've read most of them. Or portions of most of them. And I don't understand how you come by that conclusion. Details are details. They're never wrong.
Or bought with his money every male in his household and circumcised them, as God told him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised, and his son Ishmael was 13.
Now you see, Abraham was 99, not 8 days old, which meant it hurt like a son of a gun to give up that little piece of skin.
Abraham and his son Ishmael were both circumcised on that very day, and every male in Abraham's household, including those born in his household or bought from a foreigner, was circumcised with him. Here's a question. Who's doing the cutting?
Here's an answer. The Jewish have a man in their employ called a moil. A moil. Look it up. It's the guy who does the cutting. He's trained specially for that reason. And there are some weird ones out there that do some things that most Jewish people do not ascribe to, such as anointing it with their mouth. That's not a common practice. That's a weird person's practice who found a loophole, and they should be condemned. But the practice of moilhood, or moilship, or however you say that word in English, is the act of cutting one's penis for the purposes of cleanliness, which is next to and not limited to being godliness.
Not like there are doctors who specialize in this just yet. It's definitely not like there's any anesthesia.
Didn't I just say that there were, in fact, doctors who specialize in this very thing? Are you not listening to me? Video who doesn't hear me? Literally?
Is Abraham playing doctor with no training? Because that's not good. And who is
Check it out. That's how much training you need to cut off the tip of somebody's penis. That's it. Doesn't require like a 8-year degree or anything.
circumcising Abraham? It seems like Abraham has to circumcise himself because God made him.
Well, you see, there was a sentence that denoted this event, and it said Abraham was circumcised. It did not say Abraham circumcised himself. You understand? The word was means somebody else was involved. Come on, man. Learn to read. At least learn some basic grammar, dangling participles and such.
Which means the Bible is like the prequel to the Saw movies, and God wants to play a game. Okay, let's do...
At no point does God consider this a game, nor does he ever make you assume such a thing. That is your ridiculous nature hard at work here, because you think it's a game. It's not a game. It's very real. No one involved thought it was a game. They thought it was life.
Some basic math here. If Abraham circumcised every male in his house in a single day, because that's what it says, that's him and Ishmael and 318 slaves. So 320 people. Let's give him a typical workday from 9 to 5. That's 8 hours. We'll be generous and say he probably doesn't have time for a bathroom break or lunch.
Or possibly, could it be just, off the top of my head, could it have happened in another way, like, say, giving charge that everyone do it at the same time and it would be over in a matter of seconds? Or is that just not compute in your worldview? Can you not see the error in your logic?
Too much uncut foreskin in the inbox, if you know what I mean. That means he's chopping up 40 penises per hour, which is a minute and a half per circumcision, which, holy Christ, is...
Again, that's assuming he did them all in successive order, one right after the other. Or maybe they had groups of 10. Or maybe everyone did it to their partner. Maybe they had the buddy system. Or maybe any number of things other than the one you're suggesting.
It's insane. Even today, in a hospital setting, the Mayo Clinic says it takes 10 minutes for a circumcision. That's with trained professionals. But fake Dr. Abraham here is just buzzsawing his way through a line of penises.
It takes 10 minutes because the Jewish people have created a ritual that goes along with the circumcision, and they have to do all the little things and say all the prayers and light all the candles and whatever it is they do while doing the circumcision. The act of cutting off the foreskin takes about a second and a half. It's done. Hurts, but it's done.
Peni. And you know at least some of those...
Yes, peni is plural for penis.
Those guys aren't going along with this quietly. You want me to pull down my pants for what? Hell no! So then Abraham would have to fight back. Like, come on, I only have 45 seconds left. I'm on a schedule here. And
why do you assume that it had to be done in a 24-hour period exactly? Maybe they took 6 weeks to do it. It just says that it got done. It got started on that date. It didn't say how long it took.
What if something goes wrong? Does he at least have gauze lying around?
I would probably assume yes.
Worst hospital ever. So,
not a hospital, a household.
To summarize, Abraham is going to have a seemingly infinite number of children, even though he's 99, and his wife is nearly 90, and can't physically have kids.
Well, not infinite, but certainly more than he can count.
And in return, Abraham has to supply God with an unlimited number of infant foreskin, as one does. What the hell did I...
Again, not unlimited, but certainly more than he can count.
I just read?
You read the Bible, and it's important that you read it. Now, take a moment, reflect, and try and understand. Because to read is to consume, but to understand is to revolutionize. Now, if you found my video and you like it and you find it to be informative, please do take a moment to like, subscribe, and share. Press the bell icon so you'll get notifications of my videos. Follow the links in the description below. And hey, leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking or if you have any questions. And if you like my ministry and I've helped you and you would like for me to continue helping you, please take a moment and go to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand and give a donation. Every little bit helps, and I greatly appreciate it, and I will use it to keep coming and doing this as much as I possibly can. And with that, I am ready for whatever questions or thoughts you may have on your mind. What's up, everybody? Hey, April. I already said, hey, Darlene. I may have already said, hey, April, but I'm covering it twice just to be sure. How are you guys doing? How did you like the show tonight, and what did you think? Or did you? Or could you? Or would you? May you? I don't know how that goes. Hello, hello, hello. Let's see what was said while I was talking. Just a bunch of hellos and OMGs and LOLs and WOWs and a couple ha-has. General agreement abroad. April says, that's awesome. Hey, Jake, great show. I loved it. Thank you, darling. I did too. Started a little rocky, but I got my groove on. And this emperor is wearing lots of clothes. I did not know about the circumcision of the heart. Never heard that before. Well, it's metaphorical, and that is my opinion as I stated when I said it. However, it makes all the sense in the world because the act of cutting off a piece of flesh is irrelevant, especially considering Jesus has already paid the price for that foreskin and for any other sacrifice that may be made. That price is already paid in full. So the metaphor stands, but the act is not necessary. If that makes any sense. It's kind of like having a title for your car. It's an old, archaic way of recording things, but you're still required to do it even if it doesn't make any sense, when you could just email it to yourself. The atheist man is quite the comedian. He is kind of funny. I actually kind of enjoy listening to him talk. I just don't enjoy the conclusions that his words make. I didn't know about that circumcision either. Is it a sin not to? At one time, yes. And it probably still is, in retrospect or metaphorically, it probably is not good that you don't do it. There's probably extenuating circumstances and reasons for doing it other than to accept God's blessings, like, for example, cleanliness. And at one point they thought that it would cure penile cancer or prevent it. It was a preventative measure, when really if you just wash, problem solved. But no, I don't think that that's one of those things that are still required. I think that's one of those that fell by the wayside, one of the rules that at one time mattered a whole lot, but after the flood it kind of seemed to pale in comparison to what was going on forthwith. And so, therefore, I think, in my opinion, and don't hold me to this, read the Bible and find out for yourself and make your own conclusion, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary anymore, and it certainly does not aid in helping a man to be a better man, or to enjoy or not enjoy sex, or any of those things that would be expected of a circumcision. I don't think it's necessary anymore, if that helps. But that's my opinion. I believe that. Believe what you believe. What if it's not the boy's fault? It has nothing to do with fault. This isn't a punishment. This is a declaration of obedience and subservience. This is you making a statement with a irreversible mark on your flesh to state you are a follower of God. that you will obey his command. It is not a matter of punishing someone. It has nothing to do whether a boy is at fault or not. If you are a descendant of Abraham, you're to blame. You're in that group. But it's not really a blame thing. So, does that help? He makes me angry too, Mama. It's not funny that he mocks God. No, I don't like that. And when he does it, I set him straight. Whether he ever hears it or not is beyond my control, but God makes the seed grow. It is only appointed to us to plant it and not to cast our seed, our precious seed, before swine. So I'm not hurting him by not seeking him out and correcting him in person, because he is the swine that I don't want to waste my seed on. However, I am planting the seed, and God will either make it grow and produce fruit or not. And that means that sooner or later in that man's eventual lifespan, and it may take a while, but he will find a correction coming his way. You know, all people are flawed. All people sin. All people do stupid things. But when you grow and you become accountable for your agedness, you learn and you correct yourself. You correct your heading. So it is not beyond God to forgive that man, just as it's not beyond him to forgive us, if that helps. Just take that into consideration when judging someone, because it's not for you to judge. It's not your job. You don't get to do that. You don't know what's in his heart. He may be talking shit and having a change going on inside of him while he's talking shit. I know plenty of preachers whom became preachers, but before they did, they were really bad sinners, thieves and, lecherers and all kinds of things. And then they made the change. So a man has to grow into his righteousness. He has to learn how to be able to walk with God. You're not set at default to be able to do that. You're born into sin. The very act of coming into this world makes you a sinner. You are like a filthy rag compared to the righteousness of God. However, he provided a way for you to change that circumstance, which is very rare in the world of living things. A leopard does not get to change its spots. But in this case, we get the opportunity to fix what ails us by asking for forgiveness, by educating ourselves, and by forcefully and willingly walking in the righteous, faithful, blameless path of God, which is, I guess, the message of today. Walk faithfully and blameless in the sight of your Father. Do that, and your life will be blessed beyond compare. Don't do it, you'll have nothing but trouble. I'll leave that up to you as to decide what doing that means. I've noticed you said it straight. I pray for his soul. You must. You must always pray for thine enemies. Love your enemy, I say to you. The Bible says to love thy neighbor, but I say to you, said Christ, love your enemy as much as you love the neighbor, if not more. For if he strikes you on the cheek, offer him the other one. I am not so capable a man to be capable of that most of the time, but I do endeavor to attempt it. She's talking about the babies, they are not circumcised, that are not circumcised. Yeah, well, that's not a fault either. You understand, if it's not their decision, then they can't be blamed for it. That's why we have this thing that it's a stipulation in the Bible called the age of accountability. And it's mentioned a few times. But the reason we have the age of accountability is because there becomes a moment in one's life where you stop being a child and put away childish things and become the man or woman you are. And when you do that, your brain kicks into gear and you begin to understand the consequences of your actions, both good and bad. You begin to think beyond yourself into the future of what's possible by making a decision to do something you know instinctively or intuitively or learnedly that a consequence will occur based on that action. And that's when you become accountable. That's when your sins are placed squarely on your own head. Before that, they fall to your father, which means when you screwed up as a child, he's getting the lashes for it, if not forgiven. So consider that when being a wild child. Thank you, Jake. Amen. I love that parable. Thank you. I don't know where it came from. I hope I'm right. I pray I'm right. I beg God daily to be right, because I'm just a man. There's nothing special about me. There's nothing extraordinary about the way in which I consume information. I just happen to have a decent memory. It's not even a good one, but it's decent by comparison because of the nature of how iPhones and shit affect people. However, I am trying to say the right words that have meaning in reference to what's written in the Bible, that will help you as a guidepost, as a light in the darkness to aim towards. But don't take what I say as gospel truth. If you have a question, by all means, get a Bible and find out, because I'm as infallible as anyone else, and am most definitely squarely categorized a sinner. But a sinner that is trying to say truthful things, if that helps or makes any sense at all. Maybe I'm the only one that sees it that way, but I'm trying. And I'm trying to do it without so much judgment, by trying to understand that everyone is in the same boat as I. We're all in this together. And nobody, and I mean nobody, save 2 people gets out of this world alive. 2 people did. Nobody else does. So, LOL, squirrely. I'm squirrely or he's squirrely? Or you saw a squirrel and lost your train of thought? Squirrel. I think you're doing a great job, thank you. But I think you're growing too and learning as you teach. I most definitely am, and I make no bones about saying that. I learn every day, and a lot of times, and I've said this before, I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you how it is. The words that come out of my mouth do not come out of my brain first. Sometimes they're blessed upon me and they just happen. And I marvel at it just like you do when I say something impressive. I'm not taking any credit for that. Or I'm not even trying to be in the same room as the credit for that. But thank you for the vote of confidence. I do need it. That was a funny statement, by the way. I love what you're doing. Thank you. Which statement was funny? And I like that you say, read and find out for yourself. Well, that's how I found out. I read. I didn't know before I read. A lot of things. Some things I did know before I read. Some things I was born knowing, and that's not something I can take credit for. I knew before I could conceive the thought of knowing, if that makes any sense. I remember having conversations with my mother, and I know she's bragged about it in the past, and how she would marvel at the questions I would ask, because no 10-month-old should be talking, let alone asking these types of questions of this depth, of this field. But I was, because they sat with me. They made me ponder. And, as you know, I started talking full sentences at 10 months old. At the same time, I started walking and poking holes in things. Isn't that amazing how God will guide you? Yes, it is amazing. It's not only amazing, it's utterly mind-blowing. I don't know how it happens. The only thought, the only ill-fated concept that I can conceive of is that there's an invisible cord that plugs directly into my consciousness that the other end of is somewhere in heaven, having information piped into it as needed. And that's a silly, cartoonish way of describing it, but that's the only way I can visualize it for myself. The one when you said you can be a squirrely sinner. I said squarely placed in the column of sinner. I didn't say squirrely, I said squarely. I have an accent. I'm a southerner. Sorry. I'll try to enunciate better. That's funny. I don't care who you are. He said squirrely, something about squirrels. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention, but it sounded good. Yeah, she was amazed at the things you knew as a child. So was I, believe it or not. I've often wondered why. I mean, it's not a normal thing. It's not like most people have this problem. It's an unusual event that one has fully intact, fully realized, fully contextualized thoughts and ideas about a concept you've not heard yet. You understand? I wasn't born in church. I didn't start out day one going to church. I didn't know about any of the things I was pondering. I'm talking things like physics, things like lineage, things like the meaning of the word father, stuff like important details that are like the foundation of the religion I ascribe to were firmly placed in my mind before I began to think of the things that were placed in my mind, which has always caught me off guard and made me wonder why that was the case. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it has a meaning. I don't know if it's just I'm a victim of circumstance or I was picked for something, or if it has any greater meaning than maybe I'll just understand some stuff. I don't know, but I've always wondered about it. No, my bad, she says. I don't know if I'll ever have an answer to that question or not. That's one answer I've never been given. But I have been given many answers, and oftentimes, and this you might find works for you too, I don't know. But if I have a question about something that I can't pinpoint, that I can't seem to see clearly, I will put it away and go to sleep. And while I'm asleep, my brain will figure it out. It'll work out the details, and when I wake up, I'll understand the thing I couldn't understand before I slept. Try it. You might find yourself impressed. Isn't today, wouldn't it be her birthday? Yes, it would. Today is October 25th, the birth date of my belated, loved mother. Not to be confused with her expiration date, which is different entirely. I've done that, and it does. Yes, it does. I don't know how it does, but it does. It seems to me, and I don't know if there's a clinical or a medical explanation for what I'm about to say, or if it's just the way all brains work, because I can't see into your head. I have no idea how you work. I know how I work. And it seems like there are three separate parts to my brain. There's one that I'm aware of, there's one that works autonomously, and there's one that I'm not aware of at all. A section of my brain that is functioning, like a self-contained set of thoughts. Like I hear my own voice in my head, and it doesn't actually sound like the voice I speak with. It sounds like the one I was given in heaven. If that makes any sense. It's my voice, but it's not the same one I hear when I talk. But it is my voice, and I recognize it as mine. And I talk in words in my brain. And with that, I use that ability to figure things out, to plan things out, to ponder what's coming next, typical everyday brain stuff. But then there's another part of my brain that I can feel thinking, that I know is calculating, that I know is formulating thought, but I can't hear it and I can't attain it. I can't access it. It just happens. And then there's the subconscious part, which is the thing that makes you breathe and your heart beat and your fingers move without thinking about it and stuff like that. So there's three separate parts happening at the same time. And I don't know if everybody's like that or not, but that's the way I would describe it when I'm putting a thought together. We love you, Aunt Lynn, my favorite aunt, my favorite person, living or not, or in the middle. She was my best friend, hands down, no questions asked, to the nth degree, my best friend. She wasn't just my mom, and for a long time, she didn't function as my mom. You know, a lot of people called me a mama's boy, but they were incorrect. My mom never told me what to do. She couldn't tell me what to do, and if she did, I'd do the opposite. I came and went as I pleased. I did what I wanted to do. I never did anything that I was ashamed to tell her, though. That's a rule that I've lived my life by. Always only do what you would be comfortable telling your mama. If you feel ashamed of it, don't do it. That way you will always be okay with your decisions. But my mom stopped being my mom when I was about 13, when I moved out on my own. And she began to be my friend. And we were close, very. And most people that were on the outside thought we hated each other because we argued like cats and dogs, fought tooth and nail all the time. But that's just how we communicated, and we loved it for the most part. Now, when she got to the end of her life, it started annoying her. But up until that point, she started most of it, if you want to know the truth. She'd pick a fight with me just to fight. But that was the way we talked. That was the way we connected to each other. And I could sharpen my teeth on her. If I had a problem, I could examine it and see all the angles of it by arguing it out with her. That was my support system, the structure in which I stood as a man. And that's gone now. So I'm free falling, or free balling, however you want to put it. I'm in free fall. Because that structure no longer exists. The strength that binds me to uprightness. The thing that would stop me from doing something stupid because I didn't want my mama to get on to me about it is no longer there. So that loss is incalculable. And I would give everything to reverse it, but there is no reverse to that state. It's a binary situation. You're either on or off, 0 or 1, dead or alive. And right now, she's with God. I believe you're doing what God wants you to do and probably preparing you all your life for it. And he's out in my heart to support you. He's put it in my heart to support you, and that's why I'm here. And I love you for it. I really do. And I'm blessed by it. You sanctify what I'm doing, and that makes it a matter of import. It's important what I'm doing because of the effect it has for you. That means that it gives me the purpose to keep doing it. So for that, I'm eternally grateful and know that I don't take it lightly and I don't dismiss it offhand. I don't care if it's just you here. I'll continue to do this because God puts before us the people that need to be affected by us. I believe that firmly too. And I believe he wants me to do this. I've fought it my whole life. I've tried to not do it my whole life. But the older I get, the less easy it is to deny it. I have to do something. So if you can't fight, you can carry bullets, you know. So I'm making sandwiches or something. I'm trying to be useful. We know that is true. Thank you. She was a very beautiful, bright, wise, humble, and genuine person. Did you ever meet my mother? There was nothing humble about her. I don't think she ever once said the phrase, "I'm sorry." Ever. Whether she was at fault or not. She wouldn't admit it to save her life. To spite her own face, she would deny you the apology owed you. If, in fact, it was owed. But she was singularly unique. She was incredible and strong. And I've never had that strength. I don't possess it. And I wish I did. I wish I was half as strong as she. But I don't have those qualities. She's still watching out for you. She gave you the foundation. That she did, and she instilled it firmly. That's awesome, Mama. I believe that too. That is true. No, she would not say "I'm sorry" very often, if ever. I don't think I've ever heard her say it. I'm sure she did at some point, but not to me. And she also didn't say that "I'm proud of you" thing very easily either, or the "I love you" thing. And her idea of giving me an embrace was to pat me on the back and push me away. She didn't want me to be weak. She didn't allow me to be coddled. And I hated it because I always want to be coddled. I mean, I'm a boy that needs pampering, And she would never pamper me. Not much. Maybe when I was a child, but she always made me face whatever I was trying to get away with, It's not my fault, Mama. Well, whose fault is it? Pick yourself up and walk into it, If it's not your fault, then who did it? So, I guess I'm grateful for that because it made me see things in a black and white way that most people tend to gray out portions of their life because they don't want to face it, If something becomes difficult, they just kind of compartmentalize it and keep moving in another direction. But because of the sake of my mother, she wouldn't allow me to do that. I had to face whatever came my way and fix it or do something about it. Cut it out, fix it, recreate it, whatever. But I wasn't allowed to just sit on it, whatever it was. And I guess I'm grateful for that. Because in that sense, she instilled in me a kind of strength or stillness. She was incredibly strong. I never saw that about her. She was hard, but for all the right reasons, yes. I respected her very much, as did most people that met her. But she loved you so much, and we talked hours about you. I know, just never to me. You see, the praise and the adoration instills in the person it's due to be great. You understand what I'm saying? If you don't ever say it to the person, they don't know you're thinking it. I know she was proud of me, but she never said it to me. Not in so many words. Or if she did say it, she would say it in a roundabout, long-winded way that would make me come to the conclusion that she was proud of me without having to actually pat me on the back. She would say I'd break my own arm to pat myself on the back. That's what she would say. But I don't doubt for a second that she loved me with all her heart. I loved her too. And I think that she did me the way she did because she did not want me to have a relationship with her that was like a mother and a son. She wanted to be my own man and to be strong with or without her. And I didn't see it that way. I saw her as my strength. She was the thing that gave me the strength. And she wanted to be cut from that equation so that I could stand without her. And as a parent, I understand that. As a child, I marvel at the reasoning by it. But I guess you have to do what you have to do in the world you're given. And she did. She always took care of us. I don't care if she had to work 3 jobs, and she did matter-of-factly for quite a few years. 3 jobs, no sleep, day and night, just to keep us fed. And for that, for 2 years, I never saw her. I left her notes. That's how we talked to each other. I'd leave a note, and I'd come home and find a note. I didn't see her for 3 years, 2 or 3 years, because she was working round the clock. And quite funnily, at a place called The Clock, among other places. But she did, I believe that you just said it. Wow. And for that sacrifice, I'm amazed because I couldn't do it. I can't do it now. I couldn't do it when I was strong. But she could. She always figured a way to do it. She mustered the strength from somewhere and kept us alive. That's a quality I think that the children of today are missing in their lives. I don't think they feel the intensity of that danger of not surviving. I think that they take for granted, the children that are born in this generation, their livelihood. I think they take for granted that it can be taken away from them quickly, and that without whoever is supporting them, they would wither and die quickly. And I think that it's a sore mistake to pamper your children so much so that they can't see the fear of dying. I think they need a little fear. I think it instills greatness and qualities and intellect and ambitions that you don't get otherwise. I don't think you can have ambition without the threat of losing something. You understand what I'm saying? You work hard because you're trying to combat the loss of something. That's the only reason you work, put your nose to the grindstone and fight, is so that you don't end up in a position of loss. There's no other reason for it. Anybody that works for any other reason than that is mentally broken. I'll just put it that way. So, I think by making it so easy, by making sure that our children had everything we didn't have, and that they were never faced with any of the dangers that we were faced with, and that they were protected in this Nerf-filled, bouncy house, cartoon-like world, I think we did a disservice to our children, our offspring. I think we abused our parental rights. And I think we're going to pay a price for that. I think we're paying it now. And I hope that somebody learns the lesson soon, or we're going to lose that entire generation to frivolousness, to weakness, to incompetency, to utter unstandability. And that is a tragedy among all tragedies. We're talking about the loss of an entire generation here. And I hope to God against all hope that it can be fixed. Because if it can't, I don't know what the future holds, but it's not going to be pretty. And it'll probably be in flames and have lots of picket signs up everywhere. Yeah, I remember her working so hard. She was my rock too. I've been so lost without her too. And I know you have been. Hey, Kev, what's up, buddy? I know you have been, and I know that she knows that you were dependent on her that way. She saw you as a thing to protect, and she always tried to do so. She thought very highly of you at the same time because you were her favorite sister. Don't tell anybody I told you that, but it's the truth. Yay, there Kev's on. You guys are awesome. I want you to know that. I want you to take a moment to reflect on how cool you guys are for just hanging out with me and participating and coming up with things to think about and talk about. It's important that you have that rapport with someone. And in this day and age where people are not connecting anymore and everyone spends the majority of their life looking down at a phone, it's so necessary to have somebody to talk to physically, verbally, eye to eye, whether virtual or otherwise. We're missing that in the world, and we need to recreate that. So this is therapy. This is fantastic, and I would like for you all to just take a moment and congratulate yourselves on being awesome. Sports update. The Bucks beat the Raiders. Dodgers up by 1 in the 4th. Yeehaw. That's not sad, April. That's something to revel in, something to appreciate. Think of how many people don't get to say that they're someone's rock. That's a pretty elevated quality to possess. I don't know of anyone that would refer to me as their rock or their reason for pushing forward or whatever. Not in the way that I saw her or that Darlene sees her. No one would think of me that way ever. I'm just a guy that is probably annoying most of the time and for whatever reason can't stop picking up a damn guitar. But for me, and I'm sure Darlene feels the same way, it's like food. I couldn't exist without her input. I didn't make decisions based on anything other than her input. So her existence in my life was paramount. And I understand that entirely. Thanks, Jake. You're awesome too, as well as my whole family. Yep. Tampa is on its way to a Triple Crown, Stanley Cup, Super Bowl championship. and the World Series champions goes on and on like the sands of the hourglass, like the ebbs and flows of time itself. I'm just going out of my mind at this moment. Precious is with me, April's dog. She thinks I her rock. I talk to her almost daily. I don't. I just tell her I miss her, but talking to her isn't going to help. Instead, I try to replace her with something to patch the void, a Band-Aid over the big gaping hole in my life. No, Jake, you've been my rock like my mama. She's been my angel, and I don't show her how much I appreciate her for that. Mama, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry, be proactive. From this day forward, go forth and always take a moment to remind her how important she is in your life and how much her presence means to you, because you will not always have that opportunity. It will slip between your fingers. Do it now, do it often, do it profusely, because you won't get a chance later. Yeah, I understand that. Oh, you talked to her almost daily when she was alive. I understand. I misread that. I thought you meant now, like praying in her direction. OMG, geez, Kev, you are a fruitcake. Fruitcakes are awesome. I'm your fruitcake. Come home and get some. Tomato. That's a tomato. You don't put tomatoes in fruitcakes. It might be an apple, but it looks like a tomato. Or maybe I'm just blind. But believe me, April, when I tell you that your mama knows her value to you. But it doesn't hurt, like I said a minute ago. If you never say it, she doesn't know you're thinking it. And it never hurts to reiterate that reinforcement, because people are insecure and they need reassurance. As a general rule, they need to be propped up. They need emotional support. And if you don't have it, you turn into manic, misanthropic degeneracy, such as I. That is an apple. See, I told you. Okay. I trust you that it's an apple, but it kind of looks like a tomato, which is a fruit. You see, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to add it to your fruit salad. So, as if you didn't catch my meaning before, as I cleverly folded the concept into my ramblings, outward as it may be, you are, in fact, the tiny Band-Aid that patches the gaping hole that is left by the loss of my mother. You are. This is the patch, the update. I thought I made that clear, but it may have got lost in translation. Boy, I'm awful wordy tonight. I must be in a mood. I've been writing for the last 3 days, so I'm like in my head about language and the connection of words. I'm not as typically chatty, but more introspectively aware of what I'm saying and the meaning thereof. And I don't know why, it just kind of gets stuck. I told you about losing a whole evening the other day, and I hadn't gotten any better. I'm still in my head. Fruit salad, yummy. That's terrific. It's interesting, for sure. Sometimes I sound like I actually have an education, and sometimes I sound like I'm juggling thesauruses, picking words at random. I'm just glad we're able to communicate like this and share. I am too. I'm so grateful for that platform, for that opportunity to be able to express whatever's going on in my head on a daily basis or every other daily basis. And I hope that it grows and lasts a long time. Yeah, I love your grammar. It's very important and exciting to see what you're going to say next. Awesome. I hope so. I'm trying to be, worthy of listening to. I'm not a very interesting person, unfortunately, other than on paper. I mean, on paper, you could draw out an interesting character, but the guy just has sweatpants and sleeps a lot. But I'm trying to be moderately entertaining while delivering something concrete that you can rely on the statements thereof. I'd do a juggling act if I knew how to juggle. I mean, I'm just trying to be something worthy of watching. And I don't know whether I'm succeeding or not, but I'm making the attempt, boldly as it were. And when I finally get out of the mood to stop writing, I'll go back to talking normally, I'm sure. But for whatever reason, writing brings out a weird quality in me. And I've written some really strange things over the last 3 days, and I can't wait to put it all together and make something out of it. See what comes of it. It's not enough to fill a book, but it's enough to add a few songs to my repertoire and have a couple of short stories I can publish on Facebook. Very entertaining and funny, smart, and awesome. Thank you. That's a hat trick. I just won the game. That's like 3 bullseyes right there. Bap, bap, bap. Entertaining, funny, and smart. What do you say when you sing out of key? Just gotta hang in, Jake. It will grow soon. You've got God leading the way. I believe that. I do believe that. I believe that I'll be here hanging on by the skin of my teeth for a year and change before it explodes into a viral video. And that first viral video will open the floodgates, and then I'll be a staple of everyone's mainstay from then on. You're genuine. I'm adding words. You're a genuine writer. I believe that's one God blessed you with. I think so. I certainly have no formal training in the art, but I do write well and I do read well, so I guess reading well helps to write well. And the truth of the matter is, and this is just a bitter truth, I am uncomfortably close to the edge of not being literate. I'm so it's a gamble every time I work off a script, because if the words aren't big enough that I don't have to focus on what they say, I'll stumble over reading it. I'll trip over my own tongue. If I make the words big enough that I can see it clearly and I don't have to think about what's coming next, I can read it like I'm talking. But I'm right at the razor's edge of not being able to do that. I don't have that quality like a news anchor. I'm trying really hard when you hear me reading to sound like a person that's talking to you rather than reading something. I'm like weasel hair away from redneck debauchery in the art of reading. I'm just right on the cusp of not being capable. But I'm also on the other side of that line too, just barely able to. So every time it happens, especially when I'm reading the Bible and they use all those weird words, I have no idea whether I'm ever going to make it to the end of a sentence or not. If you mention the Georgia Bulldogs and wear Bulldog shirts, your show will grow tremendously. Georgia Bulldogs, Georgia Bulldogs, Georgia Bulldogs, send me a shirt. Truly, I believe that too. I'm very unpracticed at reading. I think if I did it for a while, I would get better at it, like quickly, but I'm not good at it now. I'm just right at the edge of fooling you into thinking I'm good at it, but I'm not. But I've been doing that my whole life. I live by the seat of my pants. I mean, every instrument I play on stage for money, if they knew I didn't know what I was doing, they wouldn't pay me as much to do it. When I, in fact, were being paid enough to do it. Just look at the songs you wrote. Man, that's super. Well, I've got a few. I wish I had more. The totality of my work, the volume that is what I do, is so small in comparison to the amount of time that I've put into it that it almost feels cheap. It almost feels unworthy. I'm a little ashamed of that because I can't produce like some songwriters can. I can't just do it every day. I have to be in a particular mood. My brain has to be functioning properly. I have to be fed well and slept well, and everything has to work in a certain way to get me in that mood. And then I have to be blessed with the muse. I have to be inspired by something before I can write the first word down without losing interest entirely. I can't tell you how many 3-line songs I've written or how many 1-verse Charlies I have because I lose interest almost immediately. It has to really impact me to stay with me long enough to finish writing it. And then once I've finished writing it, then I have to play it for a year to get good at it and find all its idiosyncrasies so that you will enjoy it. It takes almost a year to polish a song into something worthy of having. So, in doing so, I've produced very little product, which is why I don't have an album finished. I'm capable. I have the equipment. I know how to do the work. I just don't have the material to fill the album. So, I'm probably going to die without having made one. But hopefully my songs will live on in somebody. Or not. It doesn't really matter. I mean, the destination is in the journey, so it doesn't matter if I get anywhere or not. It's the act of doing it that matters. I guess. I hope, because that's the only answer I've got for it. But awesome. Fabulous. They are genuine. One of a kind. I see that and I believe if not one or all become a hit. None of my songs are ever going to be a hit. They're not hit material. They're good singer-songwriter material in a bar, but they're not ever going to be on the radio or ever make any money, I don't think. If so, it would have already happened. I personally would love to have a night where you played just your songs. I have liked all the ones that you have sung. If I ever get my voice back, I'll give you that night. And it comes and goes. I have like one good day and 2 weeks of bad days. So, I don't know. I never know when I'm going to be able. I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to sing again reliably. I may have lost that ability. Also, a Bee Gees night would be good. Never going to happen, my friend. I'm a baritone. They're tenors. Or sopranos. We got your back and love the songs. We got your back and the songs. I added love for some reason. I saw it, but it wasn't there. Well, here's the thing. Whether they ever go anywhere or not, whether they ever mean anything to anyone or not, whether they ever have any value or not, they are, in fact, a slice of what it means to be me as a human being. They're all true. They're all real. Some of them are exaggerated in certain areas for effect, but the crux of the stories are all true. They're all part of my life I've lived, and they all have meaning to my soul. They're all recordings of parts of my soul. So if you see the work that I do, and oddly enough, it shows up most clearly in the covers that I do, the 5,000 or so songs that I do that belong to other people. I picked every single one of them because they were in league with something that happened to me, you know, so that when I sang it, it was authentic. That was my reasoning behind it. So it didn't come off as phony. So I pick songs based on whether or not they align with something that's happened to me personally, or that at the very least I can relate to it on a personal level. So when you hear me sing, you are in fact getting to know me personally. Whether the character that I portray is a reasonable facsimile of what I actually am or not, which heavily leans towards the not direction. It's a character. It's developed for a reason, to make people drink and have a good time. It's designed to be topical and not have any depth whatsoever. What you see is a visualization of what a drunk entertainer would be that would make you have a good time. That is the purpose behind the character I portray. However, the underlying currents, the details in the devil, all tell a story. All of it. Even the way I arrange songs in my set list. It takes a great deal of time for me to put them in that order for a very specific effect. And that effect is to tell you a story subconsciously. And when you learn it, whether you know it or not, you have met me personally. So in that small way, I connect with everyone that's ever heard me, whether they know it or not. So I'm autonomously friendly with them. If that makes any sense to anybody other than me, I hope it does. Yes, they are. Wow. Your songs are better than what I've heard lately. That's a fact, and I agree with you. The crap coming out of the radio these days is not worthy to be stuck to the bottom of my shoe. That's a fact, Jack. Or Jake. Don't beat yourself up, Jake. Keep your positive motives on doing these podcasts, living for God, and the spreading of God's words. That's important. I love you for your vigilance. I am not beating myself up. I'm just trying to be honest. And sometimes I guess that does sound like I'm being down on myself, but I'm not. I'm just trying to accurately portray what you see before you. And most people don't do that. And that's why it feels that way to you, because most people sugarcoat themselves before you ever see them. I don't. What you see is what you get. I'm as serious as a heart attack. I mean what I say what I mean, and I'm not putting on any airs whatsoever. Now, you may think that's arrogant or whatever adjective people use to describe me, but one thing you can know for certain, when you gaze upon that which is me, you see a genuine article. I've spent the greater part of my life working on making that a true statement. I don't like to play up what I am. I just am. Whether it's good or bad, some of it's bad, some of it's good, some of it's indifferent to anything. A lot of it don't make any sense at all. I'm not beating myself up. I'm just telling the truth and trying to tell it to somebody that knows me somewhat. I already know you, and it makes perfect sense to me. Thank you. Well, you know a version of me. You don't know me entirely. There's a lot about me that you'll never know. In fact, you could know me for 50 years and spend every day of your life with me, and I will surprise you still. Because I even surprise myself sometimes. Then that surprise doesn't mean it's a good thing. It's just you weren't expecting it. You are funny. I love you. And I love you. And I'm grateful that I'm funny. Sometimes I wonder. I've got a sense of humor that's made for deaf people. I should have one of those people behind me doing the hand signs like the Democrats do for a community that I'm certain is not paying attention to that broadcast for any reason whatsoever. Why they do it is beyond me. I'd like to know the memo that went behind that decision. I'd like to have been in that meeting because it's hilarious. You ever noticed that? You ever seen it? Only Democrats do it. Anytime they're on TV, they'll have somebody behind them doing sign language. And I bet there's not one deaf person in the crowd. And if he is there, he got there by mistaking where he was going. Where are you at, April? Lamau. Wherever she is, she's there. That question sounded like it was directed at Confucius. Where are you at? You mean existentially? Spiritually? I've seen it. Ha ha ha. I don't know why they do that. I'm sure there's deaf people out there that are interested in politics, and I'm not saying anything bad about those people. They have this thing called closed captioned, and there's an organization of people that work tirelessly to provide that caption. All you have to do is press the button on your remote, and poof, there's the words. You don't need that guy doing all this stuff behind you. That is a frivolous payment, and most of them are fake. They caught a guy that did it for Obama. He had been doing it for 5 years in that area, and he did not speak a lick of ALS. But he had faked his way through it for 5 years and was getting paid by the government to do it. That was hilarious. I'm here physically. Almost gonna be there. You got the joke. Congratulations and welcome to the end of a thought process. In all my years of experience, the vast quantities of intellect that I've accrued over generations of research and development, the never-ending vastness of the collective whole of my brain, I have come to a certain conclusion forthwith. I'm hungry. I think I'm going to have to get me something to eat. What the hell? That was me attempting to be funny, literally. Literally meaning with words, not literally. Literarily is what I should have said. Literarily funny. That was literally funny. The very essence of irony just happened and you missed it. Or maybe you didn't. I don't know. Which is also funny. I'm gonna go eat. Don't tell me what to do. Who died and made you the boss of me? I will eat. I'm just morbidly lazy. Mildly obese, but morbidly lazy. I have to be hungry for a while before I can talk myself into getting up and fixing something to eat. It's like that tiny scratch on the roof of your mouth that would heal if you just leave it alone for a minute. ORRWH. I have no idea what that means. I ate Cracker Barrel tonight. It was good. I don't know if I like Cracker Barrel. I've eaten there a few times in my life and I enjoyed it every time, but it never stands out to me as a place I want to go back to for some reason. And a lot of people love Cracker Barrel. It's a thing, but I don't understand that thing because I don't have it. What does ORRWH mean? Good home cooking there. Is it home cooking though? It seems like every time I eat there, I end up getting fish for some reason. Or every time I have eaten there. I've only eaten there like 3 times, but I don't know why. It just doesn't impress me. I think it's because it's fake Southern. I think that's what it is. I'm not sure entirely, but I think it's the whole atmosphere that bothers me because it's not real. If it were real, like Po' Boys, remember Po' Boys? They don't exist anymore, but they did for a while, and that place was awesome. On my way home, OMWH. But you didn't write OMWH, you wrote ORRWH. Or maybe that is an M and I just can't see. I apologize. I stand corrected. I think she means she's on her way home. And I missed it. You see how that works? I can be vastly brilliant and miss what's right on the end of my nose at the same time. It's almost laughable how much I miss that's right in front of me, like social cues. I'm apparently autistic or something because I miss all kinds of social cues. In fact, most people end up getting mad at me, and I don't even know that they're mad at me, let alone how they got that way. And it's always surprising when it happens. I always get caught off guard. What's going on? Why are you mad? What happened? What did I say? I don't even know what I said. But at the same time, I can read you like a book at a glance and know personal details about your life without having to be told, but miss entirely your intentions towards me at the moment. I don't know how that happened. I think I got hit on the head one too many times as a child or something, because I'm clearly not connecting the dots in a straight line. All I know is their pinto beans and cornbread is good. No, my mama's cornbread was good. Theirs is a facsimile of cornbread. It's very real. I worked there for 6 years. It's not real. If you think that that's Southern, you need to go back to Georgia for a while. I mean, it's real in that it exists. It's on the plane of existence. In fact, is tangibly there, but it's not Southern, is what I meant. It's a little different now, but everything is different these days. That's a fact. It's like we're living in, it feels to me like we slipped into an alternate reality somewhere around 2006. That's where I first noticed a difference. And I remember the exact day, and oddly enough, it was June 6th, 2006. Do the math on that one. 3 of them, 6s. But on that date, I noticed a difference in the timeline of my life, how things were altered in a way that I didn't expect. Something changed in my life, or maybe everyone's life, on that date that altered my perception of reality in a very real and very physical way. And I have never been able to figure out how it happened, or if it happened, and if it's just a figment of my imagination to deal with an event that I couldn't stop, which is also possible. But I also think that maybe something happened in the ether and the world changed. I grasp what you mean by the Southern. I got you. I know you do. I'm just giving you a hard time, honey. I don't mean half of what I say. The things I mean, you know I mean it. The rest of it's all humor, or attempted humor. Well, that's wild and true. I think it might be, but I can't prove it. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but I think something happened in 2006 that changed the perception or the flow of reality. And I'm not talking about like the Mandela effect, which is entirely false. I mean like something real and spiritual changed in the world, like maybe one of the seals broke or something. I don't know. Something happened. And everything is different as a result. Different in its flavor, but not in its existence. Like you can still look at something and recognize it to be what it is, but it just doesn't feel the same, if that makes any sense. And I've noticed it in several places, most of which is spiritual, but also in the way things happen, like the intent behind things, like people's willingness to push and create things. And like have you noticed that there's no funny comedians anymore? That no comedians are funny, not one. There's hundreds of specials. You can go on Netflix and watch specials all night long for like a week and not laugh once. Have you noticed that? But they call them comedy specials. Comedy gives you the idea that you might find something humorous in that special. And yet they're all like Amy Schumer and not at all funny. Why is that? Also, TV shows. None of them are good. Have you noticed that? Like the good ones are so few and far between. Used to, everything was good on TV. There was like 6 different CSIs. The show was so good they made 6 of them, is what I'm saying. Same show, different people playing the same parts. They don't do that anymore. You also notice that when you were a kid and you'd like watch the A-Team or something, there was 26 episodes to a season. Seinfeld was on like 15 seasons of 26 episode segments. Now a season is 10 episodes. Why? Did they stop working? Did they stop trying? Did they not care anymore? Are there no one in Hollywood that wants to make a show and make it successful? Because a 10 episode series can barely be followed, let alone waited for 2 years it takes to produce it. Think about it. I had to actively try to want to see that show Sherlock that came out of England. You know, the one with Benedict Cumberbatch or Cumberbun or whatever his damn name is. Bender Dick Cumbersnatcher, whatever his name is. I had to force myself to want to see the rest of it because it took 3 years between each 90-minute episode. There were 3 to a season, 3 episodes to a season, 3 90-minute sections, 3 seasons or 4 seasons. And it took like 6 years or 7 years to get through it. And I found myself going, I don't even want to watch this anymore. I've lost interest. I don't want to wait 3 years to find out what happened to the last episode. And that's the norm now, not the exception. It took so long that all the parties involved got famous while they were making that show. And now that show can't afford them anymore, so they quit making it by virtue of not being able to afford the talent. Think about that. The show was outgrown by the people in it, which should be the other way around, but it isn't. So what causes that to happen, and why is it so complicated to see a pattern emerge from it? Explain that to me, and I'll rest easy for at least a night. I've noticed they're not funny, Darlene says. They're not. Not even kind of funny. It's like listening to somebody talk at you, but not say anything. And they're getting paid like millions of dollars to do these things. And they're not even kind of funny. They're not worthy of being in a truck stop, let alone a stadium or a cathedral or wherever they put on those events. Ballroom, whatever it is. I remember, and they usually go to 15 now. I hadn't seen a 15 episode show in like 4 or 5 years. They're all like 8 to 10 episodes. The new Star Wars, a thing that defined an entire generation, is 8 episodes long per season. 8. You can't even get into it in 8. And they're short. They're like not quite 30 minutes long. They're like 26 minutes long or something like that. Really short, like reading a comic book. It's like a live action comic book, like those little still frames that you get in comic books. That's what watching shows are like now. You can't even think about it. Remember, I used to watch an episode of Star Trek and then think about it for a year. Think about the meanings of it and the contemplation of its, what happened in the story and how well it was written. And you just don't get that anymore. You go to a movie, you leave the theater regretting going. It costs more to go than the enjoyment you get from being there. All movies are exactly the same. Every single one that's come out for the last 10 years, they're the same movie over and over and over and over. They tweak little things here and little things there, but it's the same story. There's nothing new. There's nothing original. There's no creativity going on at all, full stop. Explain it. That's not the world I started in. I may end there, but I didn't start there. When I was a kid, anything was possible. You could think about going to the moon. You could think about, curing cancer. You could design things just for the sheer pleasure of making something different. And it just doesn't exist anymore. There's nothing for anybody to look forward to. That I pity the children of this generation because they don't have a future. There's nothing for them to aspire to. Anything that did exist is now growing old and waning. But there's nothing to replace it. There hasn't been a rock star in ages. Not a real one. Not like, I'm not talking about like the girl with the big ass. What's her name? The Kardashians? That's not a rock star. That is a fad. Elvis was a rock star. He wrote the book on being a rock star. Nobody had done it before him. And it lasted for a great long time. And then it just stopped. It's like people just got tired of doing it. All those great songs that were written in the 60s and the 70s, you'll never get another Jimi Hendrix. It'll never happen again. Mostly because they're not doing copious amounts of cocaine and heroin. Because that's what makes you great. Of course, you burn out fast. But what you produce stands the test of time. So it's a trade-off. You lose your life, but you get this awesome thing that you get to leave for other people's lives. Some people are willing to make that trade, and they used to. They don't anymore. Now, I've grown up into my life as a musician, and I've learned that I'm not worthy or willing to pay that price, which is why I kind of stalled out, because I don't want to pay that price. However, I understand the desire to get there and how it may look from the other side of that equation, how awe-inspiring it must feel to be running headfirst towards fame, thinking that that's the be-all, end-all of your destination, fame itself, when fame is really a burden bestowed upon anyone who endeavors to create something new, and it's actually not a good thing to have. It took me a while to learn that, but most people that end up being famous never figured that out, which is why a lot of them die very young, unfortunately. However, what they left behind, it shaped our generation. It created the world we live in. And no one, and I mean no one, is continuing their work in their good names. What do you do about that? How do you fix that? Is it fixable? Is it just inevitable that everything's going to wind down to a crashing stop? And then there's just going to be a long time that absolutely nothing happens, and then people are just quit breathing. Is that how it's going to go? I don't know. Yes, Sonny loves him. I'm so far beyond that statement, I don't even know who him is. Oh, and he's Doctor Strange. Oh, Benedict Cumberbatch is who you're talking about. I got you. And he's Doctor Strange, one of my favorite Marvels. Yeah. Yeah, I love that show, Sherlock. But I got bored waiting for it to come out. I don't even know if they're going to make any more of them or not. And I don't care. I quit caring about the show that I loved so much when it first started. Because it took so long to get to the next episode that I just lost all interest or hope that it would ever come out. Because it wasn't like they were giving us regular updates either. I didn't know if they were going to make another one. They just happened to. Supernatural is my favorite, and Blacklist also. Yeah, I like both of those shows. Supernatural was unique singularly because it had a quality that only existed in the 80s. And they managed to hit the nail on the head with that one, but only for the first few seasons. They kind of lost it in the run. They kind of ran out of ideas. But when they first started, those two brothers in that old black car fighting the devil as they traveled, that's like something straight out of the song Crossroads. And you just don't have that anymore. There's just nothing that compares to that idea. So they really lucked out with that concept. They just didn't know how to keep it going. And now they're like 15 seasons in, and they're just making shows to be making shows. They don't have any actual substance anymore. Everything that could be done with the characters have already been done with them. So you just kind of stop watching it. Like The Walking Dead. couldn't have been a more impressive show. I mean, everyone was just glued to the TV for everything that they did next. And it got so old over time that everybody just kind of quit watching it. It's still on. They're still making them, but nobody watches it anymore. Or fewer watch it. Anyway, the COVID, that's why. I don't think so. I think COVID's a relatively new thing, and it'll go out just as soon as the election comes in, or very shortly thereafter. Not funny at all, and the whole audience is laughing. I don't get it. Exactly. It's like they're faking reality. At least that's the way it feels to me, like they're faking reality. And I'm so bored with it and disingenuized by it, turned off by it, that I don't even pay attention anymore. Huh. What a thing to realize. Okay, it's 19 minutes past time for me to stop. I love you guys. I've enjoyed immensely tonight's broadcast, which I was struggling to get started because I didn't feel like it, but I'm glad I did. Please like, subscribe, share, follow the links in the description below. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Brag or complain or bitch me out or challenge me. Do something. Challenge yourself. Write yourself a note. Go to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand if you want to help us keep going. I love you guys. I will see you on tomorrow with a brand new installment of the end of the book of Matthew. And we'll hit that nail on the head and move on to the next book for next week. If there's anything else you guys need to tell me or talk about, now's the time, because I'm about 3 seconds away from saying peace out.